Hi, I'm Beth Comstock, and I'm starting a new series here called The Future in 5. We're all trying to navigate change, get ready for change. What I thought we could do is learn from people who are trying to invent the future and give us great examples of leadership and dealing with what's ahead. This is The Future in 5. Today I'm in Los Angeles and I had the chance to sit down with Mick Ebeling. Who are you? What's your story?
My name is Mick Ebeling, and I am founder of Not Impossible Labs. Not Impossible for us is this concept and this movement around looking at things that are impossible and trying to make them not impossible. And it stemmed from this thing that we just happened to do a couple years back, that we created a device that took a paralyzed graffiti artist and allowed him to draw again for the first time using only his eyes. We did that, and all of a sudden it just exploded on us and led to all types of opportunities. This desire to keep doing it.
A prosthetic arm for a young boy in Sudan, is that right?
Yep, who had lost both of his arms in the war, and he was destined to never have any kind of a prosthetic, and we said, let's figure out how to change it. And it starts for us with this concept of looking at things that are absurd and then saying, all right, how do we change that? How do we make it go from impossible to non-impossible? So what we call it is a revolution against the absurd.
Revolution against the absurd, I love that. How did you train yourself and your team to think differently like that, to get out of your own way, to not have such, constrained knowledge?
I think it's by being moved by the person who inspired us in the first place. I think we don't say, let's cure hunger, and you have to have.
So you try to say, let's solve a problem for Daniel.
Exactly. And
so make it personal.
And that's what we call help one, help many. Because if I can just focus on helping one person, then being able to help many amputees, many children of war, that becomes much more attainable because we just started with that one person, and then Beth hears about the story and you share it with your friend, and then all of a sudden.
Make it personal. It's such a good, powerful story. So Mick, how do you deal with constraints? I mean, you're at the epicenter of dealing with constraints and being creative in the middle of just seemingly insurmountable constraints. How do you think about that?
We look at the constraints second. We don't look at them first. So we say, what's the purpose? What's the absurdity that we need to actually accomplish? And saying we have to help an artist draw again, we have to help a young boy, a double amputee, feed himself again. We have to, we're working on a project now with a young child who's 6 years old, whose eyesight and hearing is it's like on this downward spiral. So the purpose of what we're doing is to create something that allows him to get around, but we know that we have a timeline. Now figure it out. It's not, you got this factor, and what about battery life?
So here you say the mission is so powerful that the constraints are just part of the process.
And you just say, okay, cool, that's not gonna work, what's next? Oh, that's not gonna work, what's next? Oh, wait a second, that's not gonna work, but you said that could work, what if we do this? And it's this crazy thing that the more you acknowledge the things that aren't gonna work, but not your immediate belief that they're not gonna work, then you go, well, what if, and you start to go,
what if?
Yeah, what if
simple.
And you just don't take it at face value.
Yeah. So how about failing? There must be a lot of failing when you try these things. I work with a lot of folks who we all say fail fast, fail small, but we really don't like to fail.
Right.
How do you deal with failure?
We don't really see it as failure. We see it as a test bed, right? So we're constantly prototyping. So if you look at our process, it's the recognition of the absurd and the revolution against that absurd. We commit to doing it, and then we just start prototyping. So it's failure if you say, let's deploy. Oh, it failed. It's not failure if you say, let's prototype, because then you're expecting some things to go wrong.
Just continual iteration.
And we have a saying here, it's always beta.
Yeah, so it's never done.
It's never done. It's never done. And that part of that iterative process, I think, is why we're able to get further faster, because we're like, okay, great, that didn't work. What's next? What's next? What's next? And that builds upon. And also, it's actually one of the questions that got asked to me last week. We operate from this place of egoless innovation.
Looking at what's ahead, there is a lot of craziness, chaos going on. You're very optimistic. You believe almost anything can be solved, from what I'm hearing. You call yourself Not Impossible Labs. Yeah. Why should we feel good about the future?
We've lived as a species a couple years now. We've survived everything from plagues to world wars to, if you look at us from a planet, if you go even more molecular on this, and as a planet, we've survived ice ages and all kinds of things. Whatever is getting thrown at us right now, in the greater scheme of things, if you take a step back and look at everything, it's just a moment in time, right? And you take that and you mix that with the concept that every single thing that surrounds us right now, that we can look, we just look around, every single thing that surrounds us at one point was impossible.
Yeah.
And now it's possible. So statistically, and I play in the tech space, so I like stats and data, anything that's impossible right now is on the trajectory of becoming possible.
I hear you talk about having a mission. Your mission is to prove that things aren't impossible. Not impossible labs is what you've created. You make it personal. Make sure you know who you're trying to solve a problem for. In this case, it's Daniel. And you're able to work with incredible constraints and against all kinds of odds and be motivated by it. So congratulations, Mick.
Thank you.
Really great model. Thanks for sharing it with us. Thank you.
Beth.
Thanks
Cheers.
a lot.